Did someone really use rat poison to try to murder another person? So around 8:30 in the morning on September 25th, 2016, a woman named Janet Stewart contacted the Rogers Police Department because she thought that her husband might be trying to poison her. Janet and her husband Bob had been having marital difficulties. Bob had been messaging other women and sending money to them. And of course, that's an issue. So on that Sunday morning, Bob made Janet a cup of coffee. Janet took a drink of it and thought it tasted bitter, so she poured it out like people would. But when she poured it out, she noticed that there was a green substance at the bottom of the cup. The material in the bottom of the cup resembled rat poison to Janet, so she called the police. While Janet was on the phone with the police, Bob actually got a shotgun and went back to a back bedroom in the mobile home where they were living and said that he was going to unalive himself. Just my opinion here, but if you are putting rat poison in someone's cup and then when they tell on you, you're like, you know what, I'm just going to off myself, I just think that that makes you look even more guilty. But like I said, that's just my opinion. So Bob didn't actually harm himself. When police got to the home, they were able to look at the cup and they saw the substance that Janet thought was rat poison, and they agreed it kind of looked like rat poison. When Bob was first arrested, he did admit that he put rat poison in Janet's coffee, but said he did it as a prank because internal bleeding until a person dies is a joke. Police did obtain a search warrant, and not only did they take the coffee cup with the substance in the bottom of it, but they also, through searching the home, found 2 packages of Decon, which, Decon is green. An officer also located handwritten notes taped to the bathroom walls that were prayer lists to pray for Bob and about Bob texting other women like he was having an affair. So Bob was arrested and taken to the Benton County Detention Center. When Bob was questioned at the detention center, Bob told the detective that he had been texting and sending money to other women. Janet found the messages on one of his 2 phones, and Janet and Bob got into an argument. Janet told Bob to get his stuff and leave, which I completely understand. Like, pack your crap and get the heck out of my house. But Bob didn't want to do that, so he decided to get rid of Janet. Bob admitted to police that he had been thinking of murdering his wife for about a year, but he had never tried to do anything before until this day in particular when he put rat poison in his wife's coffee. So Bob Steward was arrested and charged with attempted capital murder in the poisoning incident against Janet Steward. Naturally, when you try to murder your spouse, a protective order is issued, but Bob was like, I don't care about that. I'm going to send her repeated letters asking her to contact the judge or the prosecutor's office and request that the charges against me get dropped. In all seriousness, I want to pause for just a second with this case and speak about this issue. This is something that happens very often in domestic violence cases. I don't understand why when men are, I say men, it could be women as well, when people are arrested for domestic violence incidents, they are issued a protective order. A protective order is issued to protect the victim, but the person has the capability and often does call and write letters and nowadays email the victim to attempt to get them to drop the charges. And there are a lot of times that this is an effective tactic by offenders. I say this because, and I'm going to be very real for a second, I say this because this has happened to me before. I was in a marriage with a person that was violent toward me, and they would repeatedly call from jail when they were arrested and make me feel guilty for having had them arrested to begin with. And I don't know why I think people can sense, I think people of that nature can sense when a person is more likely to take blame on themselves, and they do things, say things to elicit that response, right? And it's not right. It's not right all the way around. It's not right that a protective order is issued, but then the jail, the sheriff's office does absolutely nothing to protect the victim. They're not stopping that person from calling the victim. They're not stopping that person from writing letters to the victim. Why weren't the letters stopped at the jail? Why was he allowed to send the letters? Because as a person who experienced domestic violence, it is incredibly difficult to make that call. Sometimes for some people to make that first call to the police for the person to be arrested. And then you're putting it on the victim yet again to make the call again, to tell on the person again when they are harassing the person to drop the charges. And so many times when victims contact the prosecutors and tell, wild stories. Oh, he didn't really do this. I misunderstood. I mistook what happened, or I embellished the story, which are things that victims do say. The prosecutor's office so many times goes ahead and drops the charges because they don't have a victim anymore when the victim is refusing to testify because the victim feels bad for the offender. So that's just a little bit about my opinion on this subject. But back to the case at hand, Bob had written Janet 5 letters asking her to drop the charges. And thank goodness that in this case, Janet was strong enough to eventually contact the sheriff's office and have them come out and get the letters. So Bob was charged with violating a protective order, right? Violating a protective order is a misdemeanor. In this case, Bob Steward was already facing a Y felony. That is the highest felony that a person can face. Whenever you're talking about, okay, he contacted a victim, the charge for that is a misdemeanor. Whoop-de-freaking-do. He can continue contacting the victim, and it's not any sweat off of his back because what are they going to do? Give him some local jail time? He's already sitting in jail. In July of 2017, Bob Steward pled guilty to attempted capital murder, and he was sentenced to 28 years in the Arkansas Department of Corrections with 12 additional years suspended. So ultimately, Bob tried to murder his wife. He tried to murder his wife. Bob has been in Arkansas prison for 6 years. Bob comes up for parole in 2024, in April of 2024. The parole board has already sent a letter to the Benton County court asking if the court has any objections to Bob being released on parole. And the court did object. So we'll see, how that goes, whether Bob is released or not. But that's insane that you can try to murder your spouse and serve, 7 years in prison and then be let out into society again. Thank you for watching this video. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share.